Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy.
And I'm Kodada Mickey.
And welcome to KiddieNomics. Yay! Another fun Friday of kids financial literacy with KiddieNomics and our uber special guest today that's going to teach us all about the world of Bitcoins. Yes, you, Mr. Jorrin. I am so excited because I, along with everybody else on this webinar, is going to learn a lot about Bitcoins. But before we get started, let me share my screen. Hello, Paulette. I see your hi. 1 second. There we go. All right, everybody. Welcome to KiddieNomics. So, of course, we would like to always start out by thanking everybody that has joined today. So we'd like to thank all of the new kiddies that have registered, and if this is your first time on KiddieNomics, we'd love to welcome you. Hopefully you find it fun. Our community is very fun and engaging on the chat box, so you'll see that. And of course, we'd like to thank the KiddieNomics kiddies that have been here week after week and has been learning with us week after week. So thank you for returning, and thank you to all the new ones. So what is KiddieNomics? So KiddieNomics is here to help kids ages 8+ to develop a healthy relationship towards financial literacy, helping to start kids off on the right path to have a successful financial future. That's what we want for you. That's what I want for her. That's what we want for all the kids around the globe to really have a successful financial future. And to do that, you need financial literacy skills. So before we get into our topic today, I'm going to finish up our housekeeping items. Please remember there are kids ages 8 and maybe younger and older on KiddieNomics. So if you're younger, you're 8, and if the information is a lot and you're not understanding it, please, please, please type your questions in the chat box down below. So of course, to keep everybody safe on KiddieNomics, we cannot see or hear you. So the only way to communicate is through the chat box down below. And of course, you can always raise your hand. And if you do raise your hand, please also type your questions in the chat box. We call this active participation. So we love when you guys ask questions. We love, we love the chatter a lot of the times in the chat box. It's been really phenomenal to see all the kiddies that have gotten to know each other, which is great. But like I always say, this is a safe community. So please remember our KiddieNomics session where we talked about online money smarts and keeping your information private. So it's great you guys say hi to each other and all of that, but please remember, never share anything that is personal information, because that is supposed to be kept for you, and it is there to make sure that you are safe on KiddieNomics. All right? Okay. All right. I feel like we're freezing. Jorrin, can you see me?
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah, I feel like I'm freezing. So let me know, kiddies, if I'm freezing, okay? All right, let's welcome our KiddieNomics expert for this week, Mr. Jorrin, who is an entrepreneur. He was here with us last week and he talked to us all about the digital economy. And I was honestly blown away about how much you kiddies knew and understood everything, like from supply and demand, and what is the digital economy and how money works. Like, I was amazed. So I am so excited to have him back this week. And he's going to be talking to us about Bitcoins. But so let me just tell you guys a little bit about Mr. Jorrin. Mr. Jorrin is a web developer by training and a technology nerd at heart. He's also an educator who has taught web development at a technical boot camp. He has had a lifelong passion for technology and has been deeply studying the blockchain and cryptocurrency space for the past 3 years. He has seen the industry grow rapidly over this time and loves to teach people about Bitcoins so that they can be better prepared for the economy of the future, right?
Yeah.
So we'd like to welcome Mr. Jorrin. We'll give you a big KiddieNomics welcome. Thank you for coming back on KiddieNomics. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. There you are. Awesome. All right, take it away, Mr. Jorrin. And let me just
Cool.
see before we start if the kiddies have any questions. They say, welcome back, Mr. Jorrin. Oh, I'm sorry, Madeline, we were freezing. Yeah, I thought I was. I apologize for that. All right, there you go. The kids say welcome.
Cool. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Stacy and Mickey, for having me again for a part 2. I'm really excited. As you said, like, I'm super passionate about sharing, like, how I see the economy changing right before our eyes, and how we're going more and more digital. So any way that I can help the youth kind of understand this technology as it becomes more prevalent, I'm super excited to do so. Just quickly before I jump in, I want to take a quick gauge of who was here last week, who saw part 1, just so if I need to recover anything or be a little bit more specific as I'm going through. Okay, I see one person wasn't here. That's okay. Nice. Mickey, I know you were here. I remember you. Unless it was a robot last time.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody says, Gabriel says, not me. This is my first day. Welcome, Gabriel. Devin says, not me. Niobe says, I was here. So we have a few kids. Renata wants to know, what is a Bitcoin? So we're going to talk all about that.
Yeah.
So we have a few kids that weren't here last week.
Okay. So as you know, all the KiddieNomics videos are online, so you can rewatch that one afterwards, but I'll keep that in mind as I'm going through to try and give a little bit more of an explanation, but I won't be able to go as deeply as we did last time. So this is kind of building on top of what we talked about last time, and a huge part of that was this concept of supply and demand. So when you have a particular supply of something and the demand is bigger than that supply, then typically the supply's value is very high. And on the flip side of that, if you have a supply and the demand is very low for it, then the value of that supply is low. And so we'll see a little bit more specifically, exactly, the value is low. We'll see little bit more specifically on how that plays in to what gives Bitcoin value. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
So yeah, so just to remind kiddies, and especially for the new ones that are joining KiddieNomics, that every single KiddieNomics session is recorded, and I upload those videos onto our KiddieNomics YouTube channel. So you will see this video uploaded by about 8 p.m. tonight, but last week's video about the digital economy with Mr. Jorrin is already on our KiddieNomics YouTube channel. So you can always go back and watch that video and all of our other sessions that we've had over the past months and months. Okay. We have a lot of videos.
Yeah, I actually went back and I watched a bunch of those previous videos. They're so good, and they actually give a good basis for learning more complex kind of concepts, which we're kind of getting into very technical things. So I'll try and take it at a reasonable pace. And please, if you have any questions as I'm going through, let me know in the chat, and I will make sure to explain things so that you guys understand it. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk a little bit about history. I know it might be a little blah, but we're going to talk very quickly about the origins of Bitcoin, who created it, where it came from. We're going to talk about this new term, inflation. Maybe some of the parents know what I'm talking about, but the kiddies might not know yet. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the perfect recipe, how Bitcoin it takes the different pieces of different areas of study to make it work and give it value. We're going to see a little bit about how Bitcoin is created without getting too technical. And then we're going to compare Bitcoin to other forms of money, namely gold and fiat currency, but we'll talk about that later. And of course, at the end, we're going to have a quiz. It's going to be, it's not too easy, but not too challenging. So if you want to make some notes, make sure you make some notes, because there is a quiz at the end. Okay, I think we're ready. Yes. Okay, so we're going to jump in. So in October 31st, 2008. And actually, were any of you born after this? I want to kind of judge. Is Bitcoin older than the folks that are watching it? Put a 1 if you're born after 2008, and put a 0 if you were born before. Oh, wow. Thomas knows about the financial crisis in 2008. You guys are on top of things. Okay, so most of you, okay, 1-0 there. So we have one person that's a little bit older than Bitcoin, 2009, so around about the same time. So Bitcoin's kind of like your peer. It's like a brother or a sister. It's around about the same age as you. So keep that in mind when we're talking about like this whole thing and how new it really is, but how powerful it's become in kind of this short period of time. So in 2008, this mysterious fellow, it actually might be more than one person, and it might not be a guy, it could be a girl, but this person by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, they wrote a white paper. And this is very common in the technical space where you write an explanation. Maybe it's kind of like a user manual, but maybe it's a little bit more of a the reason why you're creating something. You write it down and you present it to other people in the space, and they can read it and they can understand, and then you can talk about it. And that's how academic folks typically do their work. They write papers and they review each other's papers, and then sometimes products get made out of that. So in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto, he put out this paper, and he described this concept of Bitcoin. Okay. And then so there was a lot of chatter back and forth amongst peers, and then eventually in 2009, so just 3 months later, he was like busy hacking away in wherever he was at, and eventually he made the Bitcoin algorithm and he released it into the wild. And what that means is he released it, and it's called open sourcing your code. Are there any coders in here? Has anybody done any computer programming before or want to do computer programming? I see Mickey with your hand up. Put a 1 in the chat if you have tried some coding, or if you maybe want to try some coding. Nice. I'm seeing ones. I see a mech coding. Yeah, it's not for everyone, Suli. But I can say that when you learn to code, you can make all kinds of amazing things in the digital space. So it's very powerful, but it can be complex, it can be difficult, but like with most things, difficult things make amazing things typically. Okay, so they open sourced their code, and they allowed people to read it and verify that it was good, and allowed other people to use their code. So as I mentioned, Satoshi Nakamoto was the name of this person, but we don't really know if that was their real name, because this person right here, his name is actually Satoshi Nakamoto, but it's not the Satoshi Nakamoto that created Bitcoin. And for a long while, there was detectives out there trying to figure out who this person was, because they didn't want to reveal their true identity. They just put their name as Satoshi Nakamoto, and they found this poor gentleman who name just so happened to be Satoshi Nakamoto, but it was not the real Satoshi, and he was bewildered, and he wondered why people were calling him up trying to find out if he could give them Bitcoin. But if you see this guy on the street, he's not Satoshi Nakamoto. And the truth is, we don't know who it is. It could be a group of people that work together under the same the same name. It could be space aliens. We don't really know. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter who it was, because they released the entire code that they wrote as open source, and anybody can go and they could read this code. And if you learn a little bit about coding, then you'll be able to read it and understand what it does. And it's kind of like if you read your favorite book, but it didn't have an author on the title. You read the book, you loved the book, and you could see everything that was there, and the feeling that you get doesn't really matter who wrote it. It doesn't really matter what name is on the book. Okay, so that's important. I see a question.
Yes, so just to clarify for the kiddies, to define Bitcoins that we understand, so Bitcoins is digital currency, correct?
Yeah.
What would be the exact definition of Bitcoins, right? It's
Well,
just digital currency.
yeah, we can look at, I think the definition of Bitcoin has been changed a little bit by the people that have used it. But if we look at the original vision of Satoshi and what he wrote in the white paper, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So it is made to be as easily transportable and easily transactable as cash is. So if you like the paper money or the coin money that we have today, but in a digital format. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. If they're not an author of the book,
Let me see if there's any, does any of the kiddies have any questions?
I see some yeses, and I see Suli would be sad if they didn't know who wrote their favorite book.
Wait, is Bitcoin a bank online? Joel says no. I think Amigo meant no.
I think when we asked, is there any more questions, there was no.
Okay.
Yeah, but good question there. Is Bitcoin a bank online? So I would say that instead of it being a bank online, it actually makes you the bank. It makes you your own bank, and it allows you to to say what happens with your money. Whereas when you put your money in the bank, if the bank's closed that day for whatever reason, then you can't really get your bank get your money from the bank. Now today there's online banking and stuff like that, but suppose you needed to go into the bank for whatever reason, and now they're open most hours of the day, but they do have operating hours. So if for whatever reason the bank is closed, or they can't give you your money, then you can't get your money. Whereas Bitcoin is open 24/7 and you have control over it. So it makes you your own bank. I see a question, Mickey.
So is like Bitcoins. So is Bitcoins like coins in actually real life? Like what do they look like?
Yeah, so they are completely digital. They live only on the internet. So there is no physical coins. It might be a little confusing to see the coins in the back of my screen, but those aren't exactly Bitcoins. And I would have to go into a deeper conversation of wallets and where you store coins, which might be another talk that I could come back and give. But the short answer is it doesn't have a physical thing. There's no actual physical coin. It's just a name that we give value that we store on the internet. And we'll touch on that a little bit in a couple of slides.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna move to the next slide, and we're gonna talk about inflation. So inflation is a name that we give the concept of when supply is growing faster than demand. So if you remember back last week when we talked about supply and demand, there's a particular relationship between them. If demand is big and supply is low, then the value goes up. And if supply is big and demand is low, then the value goes down. And so, but this is always fluctuating over time. So if we look on a timeline, if we see that the supply is growing and growing and growing increasingly, then we call this inflation. And typically the value goes down. And so how we can see how this affects you and I over time, and it has practical application, is we're going to talk about burgers. Who likes burgers? Throw a one in the chat if you like burgers. I see Mickey likes burgers. I love burgers. So something that everybody can relate to is burgers. So if we go back in time, 1990 to 1990, maybe around when I was born, maybe around, I don't know, maybe your parents were born, ancient history, the cost of a Big Mac was around $2.05. And we're going to use Canadian dollars because that's where we're at today. I know that some of you guys might be tuning in from elsewhere. But then if you fast forward a little bit to 2000, the cost of a burger was $2.85. And you fast forward again to 2010, it was $3.63. And then around today, it's like $5.69. So what's actually happening here that the Big Macs are becoming more and more expensive? Is it that they're becoming more delicious? Is it that they're becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's why they cost more? No, it's because the rate of supply of our money is increasing far quicker than the demand for it. And so this is why companies, businesses like McDonald's, have to increase the price for their things to keep up with this mysterious thing called inflation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Venezuela, Thomas, are you like in college? You're always one step ahead of me, man.
He's a smart one.
Yeah.
So some of the kiddies say, why are they ripping us off like that? That's from Egypt. I guess you don't like the cost of inflation. And then Madeline said, oh, it was so cheap. And I guess now it's so expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Inflation is.
yeah, it's a very tricky subject to kind of wrap our brains around, but I think you guys get the idea using Big Macs as an idea. So Bitcoin is the opposite of that. But before we talk about how it's the opposite of that, I want to kind of tease apart the word Bitcoin a little bit for us, because it actually can mean a few different things. So as I mentioned, Satoshi Nakamoto wrote this white paper and then wrote some code, and the code can be called Bitcoin, the Bitcoin code. All right. There is also when say I'm running the code, say Stacy's running the code, Mickey's running the code. This code allows our computers to talk to each other, and that forms what's called a network. So as long as we're all running the same code, our computers start talking to each other, this forms a network, and that is called the Bitcoin network. And then all of this works together, all these machines, all these computers working together, and as a collective, that is how Bitcoin, the actual coin, and I use coin loosely as well because it's not a physical coin as we discussed, that is how new Bitcoin is created. So it can refer to the actual currency, and it's worth noting here that Bitcoin is singular and plural. So there's no, like, technically you're right if you say Bitcoins, it doesn't really matter, but it's like money and monies. When you wouldn't say I have all these monies, you say I have all this money. It's just a semantic difference. It's Bitcoin is singular and plural at the same time, and is a currency, but is also a software. It is also a computer code, and it is also a network of computers that work together that run this code. Any questions about that?
So how do you know when how do you show how much Bitcoins you have? Where do you, I'm sure you're going to get to that.
Yeah. I know it's super technical, but I want to try and take it a step at a time, and hopefully everyone sticks along.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Bitcoin code, there is built-in scarcity. And so remember when last week, again, when we talked about what gives something value, is we want it to have a limited supply. If I could just, buy things with lint in my pocket, it's a very unlimited supply. I can just keep pulling out lint out of my pocket. Nobody's going to accept that. It's not a limited asset. So that's why we want, gold is a very valuable thing because it's limited. It's hard to get. So built into the Bitcoin code, there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin ever created. And so that's what makes it a limited supply. And so when we look at that diagram, as demand grows, As demand grows, then we know that the value is going to grow, right? And we know also, based off of the algorithm, the Bitcoin code, that the supply can never grow. So we have a known variable, and a variable is just something that you can put into a calculation. So we know this number is not going to change. So if we see demand growing, value will typically grow. If we see demand shrinking, value will typically go down. Okay, following? Any questions there?
So is one Bitcoin, what's the equivalent in dollars?
Yeah.
21 million Bitcoin available.
Yeah. So as of today, in fact, Bitcoin's been going up recently because of some things going on in the news. But as of today, it's roughly 13,000 American. I think that translates to around 16 or 17,000 Canadian or something like that. And yeah, but it wasn't always that way. When it started out, it was basically zero when just one person was using it. But then over the years, it jumped up to, it was $30, and then it was $100, and then $1,000, and then now it's all the way up to 13,000 American right now. And it does fluctuate. It goes up, it goes down. I know you guys are familiar with stocks. It's similar to stocks in that it has price fluctuation. It can be traded, and you can do that online. But it's different from stocks in that you wouldn't be able to use stocks to buy something in the real world. Whereas Bitcoin can be used as money. And that's what its original purpose was for, to be used as money, as a medium of exchange for people.
So Renata would like to know, why are Bitcoins needed?
Why are Bitcoins needed? Oh, so like we were talking about inflation makes your purchasing power diminish over time. Bitcoin is the opposite of that. It allows for, in the very least, a stable form of currency, and in a best case scenario, it increases in value. So that's called deflation, where the purchasing power of Bitcoin can buy more burgers over time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So let's talk about the perfect recipe. So there's 3 areas of study. You probably study these when you go after high school. You'd go to university. You can study these 3 pieces of 3 topics basically, and they make up the perfect recipe to make Bitcoin work. And we've talked a lot about traditional economics. We haven't really talked about cryptography, and we haven't really talked about game theory yet, but we're going to talk about each one. But this is kind of like, without using the burger example again, imagine traditional economics, that's the bun, cryptography is the meat, and then maybe game theory is the toppings, right? Each one of them are important all on their own, and they have their own applications that you can use them for. But when you put them together and you get this awesome burger, it kind of makes everything better, right? And it kind of makes a great value when you put these together in that way. Yes.
Mr. Jordan, Paulette would like to know, is Bitcoins still used today?
Yeah, it is very much used today. And in fact, the demand for Bitcoin is increasing and increasing, which is why we're seeing the value of Bitcoin increase as well. Maybe you guys have heard of PayPal before. I'm sure your folks have heard about PayPal. They recently came out in the news, and they said they're going to start using Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies. We're only talking about Bitcoin, but there are other currencies that are similar and provide different use cases. They can be used in other ways, but PayPal is going to use Bitcoin and allow people to make purchases with it and so forth.
Sorry, 1 second. I just have to talk to the kids 1 second. Guys, I see the chat is going. And remember, we talked about always keeping your personal information private. So please do not share your ages in the chat because I see what you guys are talking about. And I want us to focus back on Mr. Jorrin, okay? All right, and Gabriel, I'm gonna ask your question now. So Gabriel would like to know, how many Bitcoins can one person have, and is there a limit?
Yeah, there is no limit, as long as you can, make the exchange for Bitcoin. So very similarly to how you might go get a job and you get paid, and you might get paid in fiat currency, Canadian dollars or American dollars. There are some companies that might pay you in Bitcoin, or you can take your dollars that you worked for and exchange it for somebody that wants those dollars and will give you Bitcoin for it. And that is basically the only limitation right now. As much value as you can give in order to receive Bitcoin, that is your only limitation.
Paulette would like to know, where can we get Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There is exchanges online that you can do that. You'll definitely need parents' help in order to do that, and your parents might also need some help in order to do that, which it can be a little tricky. But as the industry grows and becomes a little bit easier, that you will be able to go online on exchanges and get Bitcoin. So you'd have to work with your parents on that one.
Okay, so there's two other questions. There's a lot of questions. I know we're going to get back to your presentation.
Yeah, of course.
Jorrin. Elias would like to know, so if it is using codes, couldn't they hack your account and steal your money? That's a really good question.
That is an amazing question. Okay, so how this works is, remember how we formed a network. So I'm running the code, Miss Stacy's running the code, Mickey's running the code. Each one of you are running the code. And it's the same code. So if one person wants to go in and change the code, they are no longer part of the same network because they're running a different code. And it's very, very easy, because we're all running the same code, to tell who's stopped running the same code. So it's one of those situations that together we're stronger. And if we get divided, then those people can have their own network if they want to have their own network, but they're not part of the Bitcoin network. So that's a very important piece of there being code and of us all running the same code. And we'll talk a little bit more about security when we get to cryptography here.
Thomas had a question. So he would like to know, how is COVID-19 affecting Bitcoins? That's a really insightful question.
Yeah. So when COVID-19 kind of happened, it started, markets overall took a big hit. Like if you looked at the stock market, you can see on the chart, it took a big dive. We lost a lot of value. People were essentially selling their stocks to get cash, get money, because they were worried about what was happening in the real world. A similar thing happened with Bitcoin. It took a dip in value, in price, but steadily, much like the stock market, it's been rebounding and it's been going up. And so for the past little while, we call that correlation. So Bitcoin has moved in correlation to the stock market, meaning as the stock market's gone up, so has Bitcoin gone up. But in the past couple days or a week or so, it's actually been decoupling, and Bitcoin's been going up versus the stock market going down. So this is at different points in times, the correlation between Bitcoin and, say, the stock market are at different points in time. And of course, with any market, much like the stock market, real estate market, they go in ebbs and flows. And sometimes everything moves together, but then sometimes they move apart. And certain assets that, this is getting into more complex economic theory, but we know gold is a traditional store of value, and people like holding gold for that purpose. Bitcoin is kind of like digital gold, And in really tough economic times, typically what happens is gold decouples from the traditional stock market, meaning the stock market might go really down, but gold will go up because people are going to gold to store their value. So they'll take their value out of stocks, put it into gold, and that will increase in value. Bitcoin is a similar asset to gold. Some might call it digital gold.
Gabriel would like to know, do you use Bitcoin, Mr. Jorrin? And does Bitcoin have good service, especially customer service? Well, you can answer.
Yeah, no, there's that's a packed question. Yes, I use Bitcoin. I got Bitcoin on my shirt. I think it is a good store of value. I think it's I prefer to be in control over the value I have. Not to say that all my value's there, like there is still use for the Canadian dollar, the American dollar, but I do have Bitcoin and I do use it. And yeah, I think long term, the value of Bitcoin is going to increase because I see the demand for Bitcoin increasing.
Awesome. That was really good. I think the kids are quiet, so we can continue. Oh, sorry. Paulette wants to know again, what is the website that we can get Bitcoins on?
Yeah, so
about the exchange.
So there's many. That the short answer is there's many. You can do a bit of a Google search. I don't want to endorse any particular one over another, but there are certain exchanges that you can go on. And again, I want to encourage you to speak with your parents about doing that sort of thing. But there's also the ability, you don't necessarily need a website. If you know someone in real life that has some Bitcoin and you have something that they want, you can exchange it. And that's kind of the beauty of Bitcoin. It's person to person or peer to peer. You can just exchange with anybody that has the thing that you want and you have the thing that they want. And it's as easy as that. And you don't need anybody in between necessarily to facilitate that transaction for you. And I think that's a huge, it's a really magical, wonderful thing about Bitcoin. I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's dig into traditional economics. We've talked about this a bunch. I just wanted to reiterate, supply and demand is a huge part of deriving any value out of anything. And I love using this as an example because Pokemon was near and dear to my heart. Give me a 1 in the chat if you guys still like Pokemon, or a 0 if it's like it's done. You like Pokemon, Mickey? Nice. Nice. Okay. I still have some of my cards, and I actually had this card right here, but that was when I was way younger, and I don't know where it is anymore. But I still have some of my cards at least. And I want you guys to guess how much you think this card is worth today. Write it in the chat real quick.
I say $100.
$100 from Stacy.
No, I say $50.
$50.
Oh, apparently Mickey says they're way more expensive. Gabriel says thousands. Legendary Pokemon card. Amiga says 200. I never played it, but I know what it is. It's cool from Thomas. $67. $500 from Gabriel. Egypt,
I see.
7.
I think about
which one?
$200 or $300.
Okay.
$200 from
It can
Mickey.
sometimes be $50.
Hold on to your seats, guys, because I'm about to tell you that this card, this little piece of cardboard that's a little bit of shiny, is worth today $17,000.
What?
Yes, $17,000. Okay, and the reason
this one card.
This one card recently sold for $17,000. Okay, and the reason why, if you look right here, this tiny little thing, it says edition 1. So this was a part of the very first set of Pokemon cards that ever came out. So it's, more than 20 years old now. It's like, when did it come out? It says on the bottom there, 1995. So what was that, 25 years or something like that. So this is a part of the original set. And there was only a certain amount of them made, And so now over time, like mine got lost, I'm sure a lot of other people's got lost and got damaged or whatever. There's only a very few amount of these, and there's somebody out there, people out there that value that card because they like Pokemon or they want to use it and play with it or whatever it is. That's why it's worth so much. So supply and demand. If nobody was willing to buy that card, then it obviously wouldn't have sold for that much. So it's very important to remember that something is only worth what another person is willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through Mickey's Pokemon collection now.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk quickly about cryptography. So we use cryptography all over the place, and we probably don't even know it. For any of you that I saw, a bunch of you wanted to be computer programmers or wanted to do some coding. This is an area of study that you can specifically work on for years and years and years. It'll never go out of business, kind of thing. And it's all about securing our data, making sure that what we want to keep private is we're able to keep private. So very easy examples are our passwords. If you have a password to log into your Roblox account, if you have a password to log into your computer, or if you have an iPad, this is all backed and secured by cryptography. Okay, if your parents, they use online banking, this is backed by cryptography. If you give anybody that password though, then you become insecure. Then they can unlock your funds and they can send it wherever they want. So very important to keep in mind, cryptography is only good if you keep your keys safe. Okay? Yes, sir. Okay. Next, let's move on to game theory. It's a little bit tricky, but it also involves mathematics, and it is basically the study of why people make decisions in a strategic situation. So two kind of examples to illustrate this. If you like chess, this will make complete sense to you. But when you start off on the board, there are only so many different moves that you can make based off of each piece having its own movement pattern. And so you have a specific set of moves. But as soon as you move that piece, a piece, and then your opponent moves their piece, now a new set of moves may open up. And this is a strategic back and forth of what moves are possible at any given time for a person, and what is the most advantageous move for a person to make. So in most cases, provided that everybody has all of the information, a person will probably make the most beneficial decision for them. Makes most sense. But what happens is sometimes we don't have all the information. Sometimes we think a move will be more beneficial, but in fact, we didn't see a move that was beneficial. So these are important things to keep in mind, and it's more probabilistically. It's more percentages of what might be the best move in a particular situation. Lemonade war, exactly. So that's the next kind of example I'll use for game theory. So say you have all these lemonade stands here. Okay, now lemonade stand 1 on the far left, they start selling their lemonade for $1. Cup of lemonade, $1. Now all the business is going to that one lemonade stand. But these lemonade stands over here, they want to get business too. So maybe they'll decide that I'm going to sell my lemonade for 99 cents. All right. And so then some people start going to the lemonade stand B, but then all the other lemonade stands are like, I'm going to sell it for 98 cents. And then it becomes, like you guys suggested, it's a war. And they might lower their price continually, one after another. Now it's 80 cents. Oh, and now it's 70 cents. But exactly, they're going to get to zero. Gabriel called it out. Right. But if you think about it, that's a bad business model, because they have to pay for their lemons, they have to pay for the sugar, they have to pay for the water, they have to pay for their time, right? So at some point, it becomes not profitable. So it's game theory helps us kind of look at this in a matrix and put mathematical statistics behind what is the most advantageous thing to do for these folks. And it might turn out that maybe they need to work together and they say, okay, well, I'll sell it for the same price and no one can sell it lower because otherwise we're all going to go out of business. So this is kind of what Bitcoin does. It sets a set of rules so that everybody can stay in business and everybody has an equal chance to have value. Because if we keep fighting with each other, then it's all going to go to zero and nobody's going to have money. But if we work together, then we all have an equal chance of making some money. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How about the kiddies? Does that make sense? Let's see. I'm a small, okay, for $1, medium for $1.50. Well, I guess, Koi, everybody would have to agree with your pricing, right? Like in Bitcoins.
Yeah. So
Samuel says yes. Suli says yes, they understand.
Cool.
Type yeses in the chat box if you understood what Mr. Jorrin was saying.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
yes. Good.
Perfect. So these three things come together to make the perfect recipe, the perfect hamburger, if you will, that makes Bitcoin work. Now, really quickly, we're going to talk about how our computers are actually working together. So what if I asked you to pick a number between 1 and 100? So I thought of this number and I asked you to pick it. How long do you think it would take? You know, maybe you'd guess 1, 2, 5, 11. Eventually, you'll get it, right? And it's going to take you a certain amount of time. Now, what if I asked you to guess between 1 and 1 million? It would probably take you a whole lot longer, right? Now, what if I asked you to guess a number between 1 and this big number that I don't even know how to pronounce? Let's call it a gajillion bazillion. Okay, it would take you even longer. You probably could keep guessing for the rest of your life and you would never ever guess the right number. Maybe years and years down the line, it would be infeasible. It would be a whole bunch of waste of time. So essentially, this is what our computers are doing when we're running the Bitcoin code. And I'm simplifying this a lot. There's a lot more going on in terms of the algorithm and how it determines this. But essentially, my computer's running, Miss Stacy's computer's running, Mickey's computer running. Each of you have a computer running. We're all running the Bitcoin code, and we're guessing for this number. And when we guess this number, then we are rewarded with a new piece of Bitcoin. And that's how new Bitcoin is generated. All right. And once that number is guessed correctly, then we move on to a new, you might have heard the term blockchain. So without going too deeply into what an actual block is, it's like a set of transactions, is a snapshot in time, what happened during that time, and you guess the number and a new block is created, new Bitcoin are created, then we go on to a new block, and that block is connected to the previous block. And that's what creates the blockchain. Okay, and so it's a continual guessing of this number to create new blocks that also create new Bitcoin. And then, like we like to use our lemonade example, we need to pay for our water, we need to pay for our lemons, we need to pay for our sugar. So then we sell some of that Bitcoin to pay for the electricity that we're using to run the computer, to pay for the safe location that we have the computer. And then that's how people that didn't participate in the network, they can exchange whatever, like they might give you dollars and you might give them some Bitcoin. Questions about that?
So if there's 21 million, is it 21?
Yep.
21 million Bitcoins?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that relate to the blocks? So, because if you have to create new blocks, but there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin, do they release a certain block for every 1 million Bitcoin? Am I completely off basis?
No, you're totally on basis. So when Bitcoin was created, there were 0 Bitcoin, and then every block, 50 new Bitcoin were created, 50 new Bitcoin, 50 new Bitcoin. And so that is going to continue happening for another 140 years before we reach the 21 million mark. And it is also worth mentioning that number decreases over time. And that's probably something that I would show in more detail if we did another one of these kind of talks. But yeah, you're completely on point. Great question. So not all of the Bitcoin have been mined yet. Think of it as gold. there's still some gold in the ground. There's still some Bitcoin in the ground that hasn't been dug up yet, but we know it's there and we know exactly how much is there. We just need to get to it.
Ah, good job. We have one question from the chat from Niobe. She wanted to know, I know we went through this, but we're it's just to repeat it again. Do you know one Bitcoin is worth $16,962 Canadian dollars?
Yeah, I did know that, and it's been rising recently a lot. And a couple years ago, the highest that it ever reached was around 25,000 Canadian, and then it went down, just like stock market goes up and down, housing market goes up and down. That was its peak, and then it went down a lot, and now it's coming back up. And so we'll see. A lot of folks are thinking that it's going to reach a new all-time high within the next couple of years, but that's speculation. I kind of believe that eventually it will do that myself. Okay. So to kind of pull things all together, let's compare what gold looks like against fiat currency against Bitcoin. And so fiat currency, again, just to reiterate, is any kind of currency that is put out by a country. So the Canadian dollar, American dollar, you have the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan. There's all kinds of fiat currencies around the world. More or less, we just lump them together and call them one thing, fiat currency. Okay, so remember these from last week. These are the 6 characteristics that make up good money, and they all end in "ity." We have durability, portability, divisibility, uniformity. I renamed this one limited supply, but this is scarcity and general acceptability. Okay, so let's take a look here. Gold, super high, super durable. It's basically metal, right? You can leave it out in the rain, gonna be absolutely fine. You can hit it with a hammer, probably gonna be fine. You can melt it down and make it into coins and stuff like that, but it's still gonna be pretty durable. Fiat currency is a little bit durable. We do have coins, but still a lot of our value is in paper money or plastic money. So maybe you have a younger brother or sister, and they cracked open your piggy bank and they wanted to cut hearts into your money. So they just take some scissors and they cut up your money, and then, oh no, it's not really worth anything anymore. Bitcoin is ultimately durable. It lives on the internet. It's not going to get swept away in the rain or a fire or anything like that. As long as we have internet, which I don't see going anywhere anytime soon, we have Bitcoin. Okay, portability. Gold, I'm not sure if any of you ever held a gold coin before, but it's really heavy. And the more value you have in gold, it becomes increasingly harder to bring around with you. So you would need basically trucks or big lifting things to help you lift it if you had a whole lot of gold. Fiat currency is pretty easy. We got paper money, we got coins, and we even have digital money, debit cards, Visa cards, that sort of thing. Bitcoin, super, super portable. Again, it's on the internet. We can send it all the way around the world very easily through the network, and that's infinitely portable. Like, we can send it 5 times around the world before you even try and send your gold or fiat currency anywhere. Divisibility. Gold, it being a metal, is kind of hard to divide. You can melt it down, like I said, into coins, but you're not going to go to the grocery store and try and buy your milk and eggs with it, because you'd have to shave off a little piece of it, and it's hard to, you'd have to weigh it. Very difficult to do that. Fiat currency, it is divisible. As you know, we have dollars and we have cents. We only get 2 decimal places with fiat currency typically. With Bitcoin, it's worth mentioning that 1 Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million pieces. I'll write that in the chat to show you how big that is. Okay. So that's 100 million pieces. All right. And we call the tiniest piece, so 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, is called a Satoshi. We named it after the creator. Yeah. And so you can call it a sat for short, 1 sat. It's kind of like 1 cent, but it's even smaller in comparison to a Bitcoin. So that's how you can see 21 million being able to be divided amongst all the people on the earth. Because if you know about the population, it's getting close to 9 billion. So if we were to try to divide 21 million and by 9 billion, very hard, but good thing we have 100 million divisions just in one Bitcoin. So there's plenty of Satoshis to divide around the world. Uniformity, gold, you can tell what gold is. You can do chemical tests and make sure that gold is real gold. There's ways to test that. Fiat currency, kind of so. I have a question.
Yeah, sorry, Gabriel just wants to know, what is fiat currency again?
Yeah, so fiat currency is the general term that we use to represent any currency that is produced by a country, by a government. So there's Canadian dollars, American dollars, Chinese yuan, and Japanese yen. There's euros. There's all kinds of currencies all around the world, and so we consider them just like the same thing, fiat currencies. They're very similar to each other. So we just lump them all together in the one term. That makes sense?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So uniformity, gold is super uniform. You can tell it apart from other things, other metals. Fiat currency is kind of so. You might have heard of counterfeit money. Sometimes somebody can make something that looks exactly like the real thing, real paper money, real coin money, and spend it, and somebody's fooled because they didn't check it. But for the most part, they are pretty easy to tell them apart. And in Canada, particularly, we color code our monies. So even though they're like the same size, you can tell, a $5 bill from a $10 bill from a 20 very easily just by the color. And we even put Braille on our money. So if you're visually impaired, you can feel the difference between money. Bitcoin, infinitely uniform because it's backed by computer code, because we can verify based off of the network that a Bitcoin was created in a legal way. We can always trust that a Bitcoin you receive is legal tender and it's uniform. Limited supply, we've talked a ton about that. Gold is a moderately limited supply. There's tons of it in the ground, but we don't know how much. We don't know exactly how much is in the ground. We do roughly know how much we dig out of the ground a year, but we don't know when it's going to run out. And fun little fact, there's tons of gold in the universe. Gold is not a very scarce element in terms of the universe. There's asteroids flying around that are filled with gold. There's gold on other planets. And so there's projects like SpaceX, these big private space companies that are going out there that are looking to try and capture some of this value that's floating around in space. So if that ever happens, the supply demand kind of ratio would be skewed. So that's just something to keep in mind. A little fun side.
Boy wants to know, is it still rare if you can find gold in space, I think.
Well, yeah. So that's kind of what I was saying. Like right now, gold has its particular value because its issuance is regulated by how much we can dig out of the ground right now. But if for whatever reason we capture an asteroid, which there are projects trying to do this sort of thing, then the gold supply increases, then it would change the supply demand ratio there. So that's just something probably in the I don't know, who knows how far in the future it is, but it is coming eventually. Cool. Yeah, gold is still really good. It's a good store of value, but you can't really go much places with it. It's hard. It's not very portable. It's hard to divide. So this chart here kind of helps you to understand value and the different values in relation to each other. Mm-hmm. So again, we talked a lot about how Bitcoin is limited to 21 million. It will never be more than that. So it is, you could say it's the most scarce asset in the universe because we know for a fact, we can read the code, it's never going to be more than 21 million. All right. So the last piece here is acceptability, general acceptability. So that means like, where can I spend it? Do people want to accept this for the goods that I want? Yes, the quiz time is after this, so I hope you've been taking notes. We've covered so much. We're almost there though. So if you take your gold to the grocery store, then you're not going to be able to, you're not going to really be able to buy something with it. Most places aren't going to accept, you know, a hunk of gold, because how do you value that? You'd have to weigh it, and it'd be very tricky to, like, you know, get the exact amount. There are some places that will accept it though, but not very commonly. Fiat currency is probably the most commonly accepted currency, especially in your country. You can basically buy anything you want with it. But if you take that to another country, like your Canadian dollars, if you take it to China, most stores probably wouldn't accept it. But luckily you can exchange it for their local currency and then buy it there. So it's generally acceptable globally. This is where Bitcoin kind of loses out against all of the other things. Has so many great things going for it, but Bitcoin, it's still very young. It's still very not understood to a great degree, and so many businesses don't accept Bitcoin currently. But every day, every year, more and more businesses are starting to accept it. So this is changing, you know, at an exponential pace. I would say it's still in the low stages. But like I was saying, PayPal today, or just this past week, came out and said we're going to be using Bitcoin. So basically anywhere that accepts PayPal will very soon be accepting Bitcoin, essentially. So this is going to change very soon, and that would, you know, make all of these green. And yeah, you can guess what would happen to the value of Bitcoin if all of these things were green. Okay. I know we went super deep into all of these topics, and now we are at quiz time.
Quiz time.
I hope you're ready. It shouldn't be too easy, but it also shouldn't be too hard. I have great faith in you guys. I know you're going to be able to get these. So first question is, what is it called when supply grows faster than demand? We got 4 options here: quantitative easing, inflation, deflation, or scarcity. This one might be tricky.
Inflation.
Devin says inflation. Mickey says inflation. Let me see, who else? Egypt says inflation. Suli says inflation. Paulette says inflation. I think they're going with Koi says inflation.
Yep. You guys got it. I thought I might trip you up with this one, but everybody's getting it. It is inflation. We didn't talk too much about quantitative easing, but maybe some of the parents have heard this term. It's basically when, you know, new money, new Canadian dollars, American dollars is just created and put out into the world. So it has a particular correlation to what we're talking about in supply and demand, but the specific answer we were looking for was inflation. So good job getting that, guys. Okay, next question. Which of these is not a part of the perfect recipe for Bitcoin? Remember, like a juicy burger with the bun, the meat, and the condiments, nice ketchup and mayonnaise, and maybe some mustard on top. Which of these? So we have cryptography, we have game theory, we have traditional economics, and we have biology.
Biology.
Mickey says biology. Egypt says biology. Devin says biology. Anybody else? Koi, biology. Suli, biology. Anybody else? Niobe, biology. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're all going with biology. Amiga says a biology. Paulette, biology.
Ding, ding. You guys got it. I can't trip you guys up. Biology was the one. Okay, I think we got one more here. So which of the 6 characteristics of money is Bitcoin missing right now? Is it general acceptability? Is it, uniformity, limited supply, or durability?
Durability.
Mickey says durability.
Which of the 6 characteristics is Bitcoin missing right now? Remember the chart? Which one was red on the chart?
Oh, wait. Devin says general acceptability. So far, Devin's the only
General.
one to. Mickey now says general acceptability.
Oh.
Chip says uniformity. Anybody else? Let's see. Anybody else? General.
General thingy.
General thingy. I love that, Madeline. Okay.
Mickey, do you want to change your answer?
Which one did you pick?
I first picked the ability.
But now you're picking what?
General. But I want okay.
She's picking general
Wait, I think
accessibility.
I know. I think I know the
Niobe.
answer. Limit speed. The limit speed. No, that's not it. No. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
General,
I say
Adonis.
general.
Yeah, so I see I might have tripped a couple people up. I know, Mickey, you chose durability, but now you're saying maybe general acceptability. So let's try and think of where can we spend Bitcoin right now. It's very few places, but it's very uniform. We know that you can't counterfeit Bitcoin because it's based on code. We can easily verify. We know it has an infinitely limited supply. Or that was a wrong word to say. We have a very limited supply. We can guarantee that. So it's not infinite. And it's highly durable because it's based on the internet, and it's, unless the internet, even if the internet went away, we could still have the record of who owns which Bitcoin. But that's another topic. So the one thing that it's missing right now, which is changing every day, is general acceptability. So more and more places are accepting Bitcoin every day. And soon, I imagine that it will be generally acceptable, even more so than fiat currency. Oops.
So it was on?
Yeah, general acceptability.
Yes. And so with that, you guys all did amazing. I'm always, I'm my mind is blown again, even more than last week, how highly intelligent you guys are. You're picking up on things that, took me a few years at my ripe age to kind of wrap my head around. So thank you very much for being so engaged, and thank you for encouraging me as we went through this, and I had a great time.
Oh, that was awesome. I learned so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Jorrin. That was amazing. Sorry, kiddies, I know we've gone a little bit over time today, so I'm going to wrap up really quickly. Egypt says thank you. The kids are saying thank you. Paulette says thank you. Awesome. Let me just see. Okay. Oh, there we go. All right, let me share my screen, and we're going to wrap up really quickly. Really quickly. All right. So, question, what would happen if kids became more financially literate? And our answer is real change that impacts the world. The more financially literate that you become, the better choices and decisions that you will make so that you can have a positive and successful financial outcome. That's what we want for you. And then with that, you guys can do anything that is going to help change this world that we live in for a better place. And that's what we always want, right? Okay. Upcoming schedule for the coming weeks. Next week is Miss Alliston, and we're going to talk about sole proprietorship. So we have been talking about entrepreneurship, and this is our next webinar regarding entrepreneurship. So there's different business levels. Sole proprietorship, so it's just you owning your business. That's like the first level of owning a business, and that's what we're going to be talking about next week, which is Friday, October 30th. Which is the day before Halloween, and which is also Mickey's birthday. So, I don't know. Should we dress up next week and have like a costume webinar?
I don't have any costumes, Mommy.
All right, so we'll think of a costume. But if you guys want to dress up for next week, I know we can't see you, but if you want to be part of the fun, dress up next week, and we'll have some fun next week on our Halloween edition of KiddieNomics. That will be fun. No, that will be fun. Okay, then after that, remember I said last week, the month of November is Financial Literacy Month, which is super exciting. Super exciting. So we're going to do things in November to help celebrate the month of November. And so we're going to be talking about how you guys can start generating money And our topic is going to be, you guys can start writing books. There's a lot of kids in here that are super creative, and you guys like to write stories or draw, anything like that, do comics, all of that. Even if you're a coder, you can do a book about coding. So we're going to talk about how to write a book. And then on November 13th, we're going to talk about how do you publish your book. Okay. So that's going to be part of November. If you do join us in November, we're going to be giving away prizes. And so you have to be part of the live to win one of the prizes. Okay. All right. All right. And finally, we always want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Thank you to a couple of the kids that have emailed me and gave me suggestions as to what they'd like to see on upcoming topics for KiddieNomics. But our goal is to create tiny financial literacy ambassadors around the globe. And with that, you guys are going to help yourselves, but help not only yourselves, but your friends, your family, and community become more financially literate, right? And with that, that's just going to make everybody have a better world of financial well-being. So that's what we want for you. So please talk to us. Send me emails. Let me know what you think. You can always send me an email on kiddienomics101@gmail.com. Or you can please like and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And TikTok. And please don't forget that, like I said, every single KiddieNomics webinar is recorded and uploaded onto our KiddieNomics YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch back this webinar and all of our other webinars to get caught up, or if you missed something, you can always rewind it and do all that. All right. Anyways, thank you, Mr. Jorrin, for joining us. Your two-part session was phenomenal. I learned so much. And Mr. Jorrin does have adult classes talking all about Bitcoins. So I'll be putting that in the description box when we post our webinar on YouTube. So in the description channel, I'll have information there for your adult classes. And but that's it. Thank you, everybody, for coming this week. We'll see you next week, and bye. All right, let's end.